Billionaire only stopped to buy water. But the vendor was his mother, who had disappeared 19 years ago. Michael Richardson felt his throat dry after 3 straight hours in the most important meeting of his life. The $2 billion deal was nearly closed when he decided to make a quick stop on Fifth Avenue to buy some water. That's when he looked up at the vendor and his world completely collapsed. The woman with a brown scarf on her head handed him the bottle with trembling hands. For a second their eyes met, and Michael felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Those brown eyes were the same ones that had lulled him to sleep as a child. The small scar above her left eyebrow, which he thought he'd forgotten, was right there in front of him. "How much?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. $2, she replied, quickly looking away. But Michael was certain. It was Jennifer Richardson, his mother, who had vanished without a trace when he was just 15. The same woman he had searched for tirelessly for over a decade before giving up. "Mom?" he whispered, barely audible. Jennifer pretended not to hear, but her hands trembled even more as she took the money. She knew that voice. It was the boy she had left behind, now a successful man wearing a suit that cost more than she made in 6 months. "Sorry, I think you've mistaken me for someone else," she said, trying to step away. Michael pulled a $50 bill from his pocket, knowing she'd have to look for change, buying himself precious time. "Keep the change," he insisted, gently blocking her path. "I can't accept that," Jennifer replied, nervous. "I'll get your change." She rummaged through a small plastic bag, clearly stalling for time. Her hands were still shaking, and Michael noticed something that made his heart race even faster. She wore a small necklace with a pendant. It was the same pendant he had given her for Mother's Day, 2 months before she disappeared. "That pendant," he began. Jennifer instinctively touched her chest, covering the jewelry. "It was a gift," she said quickly. "From a son I haven't seen in a long time." Michael's eyes filled with tears. She knew he had recognized her but was pretending to be someone else. "Why?" "Mom, it's me, Michael, you're Mikey." Jennifer closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. "You're mistaken, young man. My name is Jennifer Smith, not Richardson." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. She had changed her last name. That only confirmed it was her, but it also showed she didn't want to be found. "Please just let me explain why you're here and I'm not," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "Mum, I've looked for you for years. I hired detectives, put ads in newspapers, did everything. What if I didn't want to be found?" Jennifer shot back, firmer now. "Did you ever think of that?" The question hit Michael like an arrow. All these years, he had always believed something terrible had happened to her. He had never considered she might have left by choice. "But why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "What did I do wrong?" Jennifer glanced around, noticing people were starting to pay attention to their conversation. She quickly gathered her remaining water bottles. "It wasn't anything you did," she said, avoiding his gaze. "It was something I had to do." "What kind of thing?" "Mom, you just vanished. You left a note saying you were going to the store and never came back. Do you know what that did to me? What it did to Rebecca?" Upon hearing her youngest daughter's name, Jennifer stopped mid-movement. Her hands began trembling again. How is my Rebecca?" "She never got over your leaving," Michael said, trying to control his emotions. "Even now at 26, she keeps your chair at the dinner table. Always says you'll come back." Jennifer pressed her lips together to keep from crying. Rebecca had been just a baby when she left, a 7-year-old child who could barely speak properly. "Is she okay? Did she study? Does she work?" "She graduated in psychology, Mum. Specializes in families affected by abandonment. You think that's a coincidence?" The irony was too cruel for Jennifer to bear. Her daughter had dedicated her life to understanding why mothers abandon their children, never knowing she might one day get the answer straight from the source. "I have to go," Jennifer said, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "No," Michael gently grabbed her arm. "I won't let you disappear again." "You don't understand," she whispered, looking around fearfully. "I can't come back. I never could." "Why not?" Jennifer hesitated. For a moment it seemed she might tell the truth, but then she shook her head. Some secrets should stay buried, Michael. It's better for everyone. She gently pulled away and began walking quickly down the sidewalk. Michael followed, completely forgetting the billion-dollar meeting he'd left behind. Mom, please, just give me a chance to understand. Jennifer walked swiftly, weaving through people on the crowded sidewalk. Michael followed her for 3 blocks until she turned onto a small residential street in Chelsea. It was a world away from the mirrored towers of Fifth Avenue. Jennifer stopped in front of a small 2-story house, painted in faded blue. She looked back and saw Michael still following. You can't be here, she said desperately. Mum, I just want to talk. I'm not your mother, she shouted, then lowered her voice when she noticed curious neighbors at their windows. Please, go away. Michael was determined not to give up this time. He'd lost his mother once by not pushing hard enough. He wouldn't make the same mistake again. I'll stay here until you explain what happened. Jennifer glanced at the house behind her, then at Michael. She seemed to be wrestling with herself. 5 minutes, she finally said, but we can't go inside. They sat on a small wooden bench by the sidewalk. Jennifer kept her head down, nervously fidgeting with her hands. Why did you leave? Michael asked softly. Because I had no choice. Everyone has a choice, Mom. No, Michael, not everyone does. Jennifer pulled a crumpled photo from her wallet. It was an old picture of Michael and Rebecca as children, playing in the backyard of their old home. You think it was easy to leave you? She asked, her voice breaking. You think a single day passed when I didn't think about you? Then why didn't you come back? Because, Jennifer hesitated, fighting back tears, because sometimes loving someone means walking away to protect them. Michael didn't understand. How could abandoning her children be an act of protection? Protect them from what? Jennifer was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. From myself. Before Michael could ask what she meant, the door of the blue house opened. An elderly woman appeared in the doorway, wearing a faded floral dress and leaning on a cane. Jennifer, who is this young man? Jennifer stood quickly, clearly nervous. Grandma Evelyn, he was just leaving. But the old woman looked more closely at Michael. Her eyes widened in recognition. Good heavens, Michael! Jennifer went completely pale. Michael looked confused between the old woman and his mother. How does she know my name? Because I talk about you every day, my grandson. Michael Richardson's world had turned upside down once again. Grandson. He looked at the elderly woman, trying to find some resemblance. Grandma Evelyn, please, Jennifer pleaded. No, my dear. It's long past time he knew the truth. The elderly woman slowly descended the steps, leaning on her cane. I'm your paternal grandmother, dear. Evelyn Richardson. Your mother has been living with me for 3 years. Michael felt as if he were in a dream. His paternal grandmother had passed away when he was a baby. At least that's what he'd always been told. But Dad said you had died. Your father told many lies, Evelyn replied bitterly, but now is not the time to talk about him. Jennifer was clearly panicked. Her secrets were being revealed one by one against her will. Grandma Evelyn, he can't know. It's not safe. Not safe for whom, dear? The elderly woman asked gently. For him, or for you? Michael looked from one to the other, trying to process the information. His mother was alive, his grandmother was alive, and both had hidden the truth from him for years. Can someone please explain what's going on? Evelyn sighed and looked at Jennifer. Tell him, my dear, or I will. Jennifer pressed her hands to her face in despair. I can't, not yet. Then I will, Evelyn said firmly. Michael, your mother didn't abandon us. She ran away. Ran away from what? From your father. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. His grandmother's words echoed in Michael's mind like thunder. His father, Robert Richardson, had been a respected man in the community. Owner of a small construction business, he always seemed like a devoted father after Jennifer left. This doesn't make sense, Michael said. shaking his head. Dad never hurt anyone. Jennifer let out a bitter laugh. Hurt doesn't always have to be physical, Michael. What does that mean? Evelyn stepped closer and placed a hand on her grandson's shoulder. Your father was a controlling man, dear. Very controlling. Controlling how? Jennifer finally lifted her face and Michael saw tears streaming down her cheeks. He controlled every penny I spent, every place I went, every person I spoke to. Little by little, he isolated me from all my friends, from my family. But you seemed happy. I became very good at pretending, Jennifer replied sadly. When you live in constant fear, you learn to hide things very well. Michael struggled to process this. His childhood memories seemed so different from what he was hearing. Fear of what? Fear of what he'd do if I stood up to him. Fear of what he'd do to you if I tried to leave. Evelyn shook her head, as if reliving painful memories. Robert was always like this, even as a child. He wanted to control everything and everyone around him. I tried to raise him differently, but why did you never tell me? Because you were a child, Jennifer explained. And because, despite everything, Robert was a good father to you. He never laid a hand on you or Rebecca. The problem was only with me. Michael vaguely remembered nighttime arguments, slamming doors, his mother crying softly in the bathroom. But they were fragmented memories he had dismissed as normal marital spats. Then why did you leave like that? Why didn't you take us with you? Jennifer looked down at her hands, as if gathering courage. Because he said, if I tried to take you, he'd make me disappear forever. And he had the means to make it happen. What kind of means? Evelyn and Jennifer exchanged a meaningful glance. Your father wasn't just a construction business owner, Michael, Evelyn said carefully. He had other activities. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. He was beginning to realize his childhood had been built on a series of lies and half-truths. What other activities? Money laundering, Jennifer whispered. Through the construction company. He worked for very dangerous people. Michael's world collapsed all over again. His father, the man he had admired and respected, had been a criminal. How did you know about this? Because I found out by accident, Jennifer explained. I came across documents on his desk one night. When he realized I knew, he said if I told anyone or tried to leave, you would pay the price. But you left anyway. Because I couldn't live like that anymore, and because... Jennifer hesitated. Because I thought without me you'd be safer. Michael tried to piece together the puzzle. His mother had sacrificed her own happiness and the chance to be with her children to protect them from a danger they hadn't even known existed. Where did you go when you left? Far away, Jennifer replied. I went to rural Vermont, worked on a farm. I used fake documents I got through a friend. Fake documents? Jennifer Smith, she explained. It was the only way to make sure Robert wouldn't find me. Evelyn let out a deep sigh. She reached out to me 3 years ago when she heard Robert had passed away, but even then, she was afraid to come back to you. Why? Jennifer looked directly into her son's eyes for the first time since they'd reunited. Because after 19 years, I didn't know if you'd forgive me, and because I wasn't sure I deserved forgiveness. Michael was hit by a wave of conflicting emotions, anger at being abandoned, relief knowing she was alive, sadness for the lost opportunities, and a slow understanding that the situation had been far more complicated than he'd imagined. You could have trusted me, he finally said. When I grew up, you could have told me the truth. And put you in danger too? Jennifer asked. Robert had connections, Michael. Even as an adult, you wouldn't have been safe if you knew. But he died 5 years ago. Why didn't you come back then? Jennifer exchanged another meaningful glance with Evelyn. Because the people he worked for are still alive, and they know I have information that could hurt them. Michael felt a shiver. His mother was still in danger, even after all these years. What kind of information? Names, dates, amounts, things I overheard during the years I lived with him, things that could send a lot of powerful people to prison. Is that why you're selling water on the street? It's a way to stay unnoticed, Jennifer explained. No one pays attention to a street vendor. Michael looked at the modest house behind them, then at his mother in her simple, worn clothes. The contrast with his own luxurious life was stark. "Mom, I can protect you now. I have resources. I can hire security and draw even more attention?" Jennifer shook her head. "No, Michael. It's too risky. So you'll just keep living like this forever?" "If I have to, yes." Evelyn, who had stayed quiet for much of the conversation, finally spoke. "Jennifer, dear, maybe it's time to trust your son. He's not a child anymore." "Grandma Evelyn, he has the right to choose if he wants to take the risks with you." Michael looked at his grandmother gratefully. That was exactly what he wanted to say, but couldn't find the words for. "Mom, let me help you, please." Jennifer stayed silent for several minutes, clearly wrestling with herself. Finally, she sighed. "There's more you need to know before deciding anything." "What?" "About Rebecca." Michael's heart raced. "Your younger sister was always very reserved about the past. He assumed it was just her way of dealing with their mother's abandonment." "What's wrong with Rebecca?" She's known where I've been for the past 2 years." Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. "What do you mean?" "She found me through her work. She was helping a family in Chelsea and recognized me on the street. And she didn't tell me?" Jennifer looked at the ground, clearly ashamed. "I asked her not to. I said if you knew, you'd be in danger too." Michael stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth on the sidewalk. His sister had lied to him for 2 years. His mother had lied to him his whole life. His father had lied about everything. "Who else can I trust?" he asked, more to himself than to the other two. "Michael, no!" He turned to Jennifer. "The two of you decided what was best for me without even consulting me. You treated me like a child who couldn't make his own decisions." "We were trying to protect you." "Protect me from what? From having a complete family? From knowing the truth about my own life?" Evelyn slowly stood up, leaning on her cane. "Son, your mother did what she thought was best under the circumstances. No, Grandma, don't try to justify it. You stole 19 years with my mother because you decided I wasn't strong enough to handle the truth." Jennifer began to cry silently. "You're right," she said, her voice breaking. "I was a coward, but I was so afraid, Michael. So afraid of losing you forever. And you lost us anyway." The words came out harsher than Michael intended, but he was too hurt to care. "I know," Jennifer whispered. "I know I made terrible mistakes, but I can't go back and change that." Michael stopped pacing and looked at his mother. She seemed to have aged 10 years since their conversation began. Her posture was hunched, as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Despite his anger, he felt a pang of compassion. She'd lived 19 years in constant fear, isolated from her family, watching her children grow up from afar. "How did you know about my life?" he asked, a little softer. "Rebecca told me everything. Your graduation, your marriage, the birth of your children. You have grandchildren and never met them." "I know," Jennifer cried harder. "That's my biggest regret in life." Michael thought of his 2 kids, 10 and 12. They always asked about their paternal grandmother, and he always said she'd passed away when they were babies. "They could have known you. And I would have loved to meet them." Evelyn stepped closer again. "It's not too late for that, you know." Michael and Jennifer looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're both here alive and have a chance to make up for lost time. You can't go back, but you can build a future together." "It's not that simple, Grandma Evelyn," Michael said. "There's still the matter of the dangerous people." "And there's Rebecca," Jennifer added. "She'll be furious when she finds out you know." "Leave Rebecca to me," Michael said firmly. "She'll have to explain why she lied to me for 2 years." Jennifer flinched slightly. "Don't blame her, Michael. It's all my fault. You're both adults who made adult decisions. You'll both have to face the consequences." His tone was stern, but Jennifer detected a small opening. He hadn't said he never wanted to see her again. There was still hope. "What do you want to do now?" she asked carefully. Michael checked his watch. He'd already missed the billion-dollar meeting, probably angering important clients. But none of that seemed important now. "First, I'm going to talk to Rebecca. Later, we'll sit down together, the three of us, and decide how to move forward. What if she doesn't want to? She will. Rebecca spent her whole life studying separated families. She won't throw away the chance to reunite ours. Jennifer nodded timidly. Would you like to come in? Have some coffee? Michael looked at the modest house, then at his mother. Despite all the anger and confusion, part of him just wanted to hug her and never let her go again. Yes, he said simply. I'd like that. Evelyn smiled for the first time since the conversation had begun. Then let's go inside. I have plenty of stories to tell you about your father when he was a boy. All true, I hope, Michael said, with a touch of bitter humor. All true, Evelyn promised. We've had enough lies in this family. They stepped into the small house, and Michael was surprised by how cozy and clean it was, despite its simplicity. The walls were covered with photos of him and Rebecca at different ages, graduations, weddings, birthdays. How did you get these pictures? Rebecca brought them to me, Jennifer explained, and sometimes I watched you from afar. Watched how? Jennifer blushed slightly. At your college graduation I was there, at the back of the auditorium. At your wedding I stood across the street behind a tree. Michael felt a lump in his throat. Imagining his mother watching the most important moments of his life from a distance like a stranger was devastating. Mom, I know it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to see how you were growing up. Evelyn came in from the kitchen with a tray of coffee and some homemade cookies. Jennifer took all those pictures in secret, she said, trying to ease the tension. She has whole albums of photos she took from far away. Can I see them? Jennifer hesitated, then went to an old cabinet and pulled out 3 thick albums. She placed them carefully on the coffee table, as if they were precious treasures. Michael opened the first album and felt his eyes fill with tears. It was like seeing his own life through the eyes of a secret observer. Photos of him leaving college, talking with friends, entering restaurants, playing with his kids in the park. You followed me all these years. Not followed exactly, Jennifer defended herself. Just checked in on you from time to time. And Rebecca. Her too. I have pictures of her walking with her boyfriends. Michael flipped through the pages, seeing his entire life documented by a mother he thought he'd lost. It was touching and unsettling at the same time. This must have been so painful for you. It was, Jennifer admitted, but it was the only way I could feel connected to you. Evelyn poured the coffee and sat in an old armchair. Now, tell me about your life, dear. Rebecca told me you have a very successful company. Michael felt strange talking about his achievements to a grandmother he'd just met and a mother who had been absent. But he began to share how he'd built his tech company from scratch, about his children, about his wife, Sarah. Does Sarah know about all this? Jennifer asked carefully. She knows my mother disappeared when I was a teenager. She doesn't know the rest. Is she a good person? The best. Michael smiled for the first time since they'd reunited. She'd love to meet you. Jennifer looked down. I don't know if she'd forgive me for leaving you. Sarah understands complicated situations. Her family has its own secrets too. They talked for 2 hours, slowly filling in the gaps of nearly 2 decades. Jennifer told him about her years in rural Vermont, working on farms and later in a small bakery. Evelyn spoke about how she had waited all these years for the family to reunite. Michael looked at his watch and noticed it was getting dark. I need to go home. Sarah will be worried. Of course, Jennifer said, trying to hide her disappointment. But I'll be back tomorrow, and I want both of you to come over for dinner this weekend. Jennifer's eyes widened. Michael, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Why not? What if someone recognizes me? What if it causes trouble for your family? Mom, you can't live in fear forever. Evelyn nodded in agreement. The boy's right, dear. At some point, you'll have to take the risk of truly living. Jennifer looked back and forth between them, clearly torn between her desire to be with family and her fear of the consequences. Let me think about it. All right, Michael stood up. But I'm not giving up on you again, Mom. This time we'll face it together. He hugged Jennifer for the first time in 19 years. She was smaller than he remembered, more fragile. but she still carried the same lavender scent from his childhood. "I missed you so much," he whispered. "Me too, my son, me too." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. Michael drove home in silence, still processing everything he had discovered. When he arrived, he found Sarah in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She looked at him and immediately sensed something had happened. "Honey, are you okay? You missed your meeting today." Your assistant called, worried. Michael sat at the kitchen table and buried his face in his hands. "Sarah, I need to tell you something that's going to change our lives completely." Sarah dropped the spoon she was holding and sat beside him. "What happened?" "I found my mother today." Sarah stared at him, confused. "What do you mean? Your mother died when you were—" "She didn't die. She ran away, and she's alive." Over the next hour, Michael told Sarah the whole story. She listened quietly, occasionally asking questions to clarify details. "My God, Michael, you must be in shock." "I am. But I'm also relieved. All these years, I wondered if she had died because of me, if I had done something to drive her away. And now you know it wasn't like that. But I also found out my father wasn't the man I thought he was." Sarah took his hand. "That doesn't change who you are, love. You built your own life, your own values." "I know, but it hurts to discover your childhood was built on lies. What are you going to do now?" "First, I'll talk to Rebecca. She has a lot to explain. And then? Then, I want you and the kids to meet my mother and grandmother." Sarah smiled. "I'd love that. The kids have always wanted more family." "But Sarah, it could be dangerous. The people my father worked for are still out there." "Then we'll be careful, but we won't let fear stop us from having a complete family." Michael smiled. That was exactly what he had hoped she'd say. "I love you so much." "I love you too. And I want to meet the woman who raised the amazing man I fell in love with." That night, Michael called Rebecca. "Hey, little bro, how was your meeting today?" "Rebecca, I need to talk to you, in person." "Is everything okay? You sound strange. Can you come over now?" "Michael, it's almost 10 at night." "It's important, Becky. Really important." There was something in his tone that made Rebecca realize this wasn't a casual request. "All right, I'm on my way." Rebecca arrived half an hour later, finding Michael and Sarah waiting for her in the living room. "What's going on? Did someone die?" "No," Michael said calmly. "But someone came back to life." Rebecca stared at him, bewildered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about our mother, Rebecca." The color drained from Rebecca's face. She slowly sat down on the couch, as if her legs had lost their strength. "How did you—" "I ran into her today by chance, selling water on 5th Avenue. Rebecca closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Michael, 2 years, Becky. 2 years you knew where she was and didn't tell me." "I couldn't—" "Why not?" "Because she begged me not to. She said you'd be in danger if you knew." Michael stood up and began pacing the room. "And you thought it was okay to decide that for me?" "I was trying to protect you." "Protect me or protect her?" Rebecca started crying. "Both." "Michael, you don't understand. When I found her, she was terrified. She said if you knew where she was, dangerous people might hurt you too. Dangerous people who worked with our father." "She told you about that?" "She did. About the money laundering, the threats, everything." Rebecca wiped her tears. "Then you understand why I couldn't tell you." "No, Becky, I don't. We're siblings. We should have faced this together." "But she said she was scared, and you fed that fear instead of helping her overcome it." Sarah gently intervened. "Michael, maybe Rebecca was scared too." Rebecca looked at her sister-in-law with gratitude. I was terrified of losing you too, Michael. As a child, I'd already lost my mother. I couldn't risk losing my brother too." Michael stopped pacing and looked at his sister. She seemed as vulnerable and frightened as when she was little. "Becky, you could never lose me, never." But what if something happened to you because of the information she has? Then we'd face it together, as a family. Rebecca cried harder. I'm so sorry, Michael. I didn't know what to do. Every time I was about to tell you, she begged me not to. Michael sat beside his sister and hugged her. It's okay. I understand you were in an impossible situation. Do you forgive me? Of course I do. But now things will be different. How so? Now the three of us will decide how to move forward, together. Rebecca looked at him with hope. Does that mean you'll stay in touch with her? It means I'll try to make up for lost time if she lets me. She wants that more than anything in the world, Michael. For the past 2 years, all she's talked about is you and how she wishes she had the courage to reach out. Then why didn't she? Because she's afraid you'll reject her, afraid you won't forgive her for leaving. Michael thought for a moment. How is she, physically, emotionally? She seems healthy, but emotionally, she carries a lot of weight, Michael. So much regret. And financially? She gets by, sells water in the morning, works at a diner in the afternoon. Grandma Evelyn gets a small pension. Michael stayed quiet for a few minutes, processing everything. I want you to set up a meeting for tomorrow. You, me, her, and Grandma Evelyn. For what? To talk about how we'll make this work, how we'll be a family again. Rebecca smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. She'll be so happy. But Becky, no more secrets this time. If we're doing this, it has to be with complete honesty between us. I agree. Sarah, who had stayed silent for most of the conversation, finally spoke. And I'd like to meet them too, if you don't mind. Rebecca looked at her warmly. I'm sure she'd love to meet you, sir. She always asks about you and the kids. The kids, Michael said thoughtfully. How do we explain this to them? The truth, Sarah said simply. They deserve to know they have a grandmother and a great-grandmother. But what if this puts them in danger? Then we'll take the necessary precautions, but we won't deprive our children of knowing their family because of fears that may never come true. Michael looked at his wife with admiration. She always knew how to find the balance between caution and courage. You're right. Rebecca stood up to leave. I'll call her early tomorrow and explain everything. Becky? Yeah? Thank you for taking care of her all these years. Rebecca smiled through her tears. Don't mention it, little bro. It was the least I could do. After Rebecca left, Michael and Sarah went to bed. He lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and trying to process all the conflicting emotions he felt. Sarah, do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're following your heart, and that's rarely wrong. But what if the dangerous people find out? Then we'll deal with it when it happens. You can't live your life based on what might be. What if she disappears again? Then you'll go after her again, as many times as it takes. Michael smiled in the dark. How do you always know what to say? Because I know you. And I know you'd never forgive yourself if you didn't try to mend things with your mum. The next day, Michael cancelled all his meetings. For the first time in years, he put family before business. He met with Rebecca, Jennifer, and Evelyn at a small cafe in Chelsea, far from the prying eyes of the business district. Jennifer was clearly nervous, fidgeting with her hands and avoiding Michael's direct gaze. Thank you for coming, she said timidly. Thank you for agreeing to see me again. They ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. Mom, Michael finally said, I spent last night thinking about our conversation yesterday. Jennifer tensed slightly, as if bracing for bad news. And I've come to some conclusions. What are they? First, I understand why you did what you did. I don't agree, but I understand. Jennifer nodded, still not looking directly at him. Second, I don't want to waste any more time blaming you for the past. This time, Jennifer looked up, surprised. What does that mean? It means I want to move forward. I want you to meet my wife and my kids. I want Grandma Evelyn to be the great-grandmother they deserve to have. Evelyn smiled widely. That would be wonderful, dear. But, Michael continued, this will only work if there are no more secrets between us. Jennifer nodded vigorously. No more secrets. And if we're going to face the dangers together, we have to face them as a family. I won't accept you disappearing again to protect us. I promise, Jennifer said, her voice trembling. I won't run away again. Rebecca wiped tears from her eyes. Does this mean our family will finally be whole again? Michael looked around the table at these three women who had shaped his life in different ways. It means we'll try, one day at a time. Jennifer finally smiled genuinely for the first time since they'd reunited. It's all I've ever wanted. Then let's start now, Michael said, pulling out his phone. I'll call Sarah and ask her to bring the kids here. Jennifer paled. Now? Here? Why not? They're on school break. Sarah isn't working today. It's the perfect time. But I don't know what to say to them, how to introduce myself. As their grandmother, Rebecca said softly. That's all you need to be. Michael dialed Sarah's number. Honey, can you bring Ethan and Emma to Chelsea? There are some very special people I want them to meet. Now? Now. Okay, we'll be there in half an hour. When Michael hung up, Jennifer was clearly panicking. What if they don't like me? What if they ask questions I don't know how to answer? They're children, Mom. Children are much simpler than adults. They just need to know you love them. But I don't even know them. Then this is your chance to meet them. Evelyn took Jennifer's hand. Sweetheart, you've spent 19 years imagining what it would be like to meet your grandchildren. Now you'll find out. When Sarah arrived with Ethan, 12, and Emma, 10, Michael stood to greet them. Kids, I want you to meet some very special people. Ethan, always more observant, looked curiously at the three women at the table. Dad, who are they? This is Evelyn, your great-grandmother, and this is Jennifer, your grandmother. Emma's eyes widened. But you said our grandmother had died. I was wrong, Princess. She was alive all along, just very far away. Ethan, ever practical, asked, why was she far away? Michael glanced at Jennifer, who was clearly at a loss for words. Sometimes adults make mistakes, son, and your grandmother made the mistake of thinking you'd be safer without her. But we weren't safer, Emma said with the honesty only children have. We were sadder. Jennifer began to cry silently. I know, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry for that. To everyone's surprise, Emma walked up to Jennifer and hugged her. Don't cry, Grandma, you're here now. The child's simple gesture broke down all the remaining barriers. Jennifer held her granddaughter as if she'd never let go. I love you so much, my princess. Even without knowing you, I've always loved you. Ethan, more reserved, watched the scene for a few minutes before stepping closer too. Grandma, are you coming to our birthday party next month? Jennifer looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. If you'd like me to, I'd love to. Of course we do, Emma exclaimed. And great-grandma Evelyn too. Evelyn laughed, looking 10 years younger. It would be an honor, dear. Sarah, who had stayed quiet while watching the reunion, finally approached Jennifer. Jennifer, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Michael always spoke of you so fondly. Jennifer stood up timidly. Sarah, thank you for taking such good care of my son and my grandchildren. They've made my life complete. And now you can make our family even more complete. The two women hugged, and Michael felt a long broken part of himself begin to heal. Dad, Ethan said, is Grandma going to live with us now? Michael glanced at Jennifer, who still seemed hesitant. Grandma has her own home, son, but she'll visit us often. Every day? Jennifer laughed through her tears. If you'd like, I can come every day. We'd love that, Emma and Ethan said in unison. For the next 2 hours, they stayed at the cafe, talking, laughing, and getting to know each other. Jennifer shared stories of Michael and Rebecca's childhood. Evelyn taught her great-grandchildren some old songs. The children asked 1,000 questions about where Jennifer had been and why she'd taken so long to come back. Michael watched the scene with a mix of happiness and melancholy. He was overjoyed to finally have his family together, but sad for the lost opportunities, the birthdays without Grandma, the incomplete Christmases. Michael, Jennifer said softly, stepping closer to him, I know I'll never get back the time I lost with you. No, Mom, you won't. She flinched slightly at his brutal honesty. But, he continued, we can build new moments, starting now. Jennifer smiled. That's all I can ask for." "Actually, you can ask for more," Michael said, surprising her. "What do you mean?" "You can ask to be a real part of our lives, not just as a visitor, but as family." "What are you suggesting?" Michael looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "I'm suggesting that you and Grandma Evelyn move into a house near ours, so we can be together every day if you'd like." Jennifer widened her eyes. "Michael, that would be very expensive." "Mum, I have the means for this, and more importantly, I want to do it." "But what if the dangerous people find out?" "Then we'll deal with it when it happens, but I won't let fear separate us again." Evelyn clapped her hands. "That would be wonderful. I could help with the kids, cook for you." "Exactly," Sarah said. "The kids would love having their grandma and great-grandma nearby." Jennifer looked around the table at all these people, welcoming her back into the family without hesitation. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Michael said firmly. "Then, yes, I'd love to be part of your lives for real." Emma jumped from her chair and ran to hug her grandmother. "Now we're a complete family." "Yes, sweetheart," Jennifer said, looking at Michael with endless gratitude. "Now we're a complete family." In the following weeks, Michael kept his promise. He bought a comfortable house 3 blocks from theirs, where Jennifer and Evelyn moved. It wasn't luxurious, but it was decent and safe. Jennifer still insisted on working, so Michael hired her to help manage a social project his company was developing in Chelsea, the very neighborhood where she had spent the last few years. "The irony is perfect," she told him. "Now I can officially help the people who helped me when I had nothing. And you know the community better than any consultant I could hire." Evelyn became the unofficial babysitter for the kids, picking them up from school, helping with homework, and filling the house with stories and affection. Rebecca visited every day, finally free from the burden of keeping secrets. She and Jennifer started therapy together, working through years of hurt and misunderstandings. "You know," Rebecca said to Michael one afternoon, "I think our family is stronger now than it's ever been." "Why?" "Because now we know we can overcome anything. We've been through the worst and came out the other side still together." Michael agreed. There was a solidity in the family that hadn't existed before. They had been tested by abandonment, lies, and fear, yet they had chosen to stay together. One day, 2 months after the reunion, Michael came home and found Jennifer in the kitchen with Sarah, teaching her how to make the chocolate cake he loved as a child. "You have to stir in the same direction," Jennifer was saying. "Otherwise the chocolate will curdle." "Like this?" "Perfect. Michael always said it was the best cake in the world." "Because it was," Michael said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "Hi, honey," Sarah smiled. "Your mom is teaching me her culinary secrets." "So I can make it for you when she's not here," Jennifer explained. Michael hugged both women. "You know you don't have to worry about that, right? She'll always be here." "Always is a strong word, son," Jennifer said softly. "Not for me. For me, family is forever." That night, after the kids went to bed, the whole family gathered in the living room. Jennifer was teaching Evelyn how to play video games with the grandkids, while Rebecca showed Sarah old family photos. Michael watched the scene and felt a peace he hadn't known in years. His family was complete, united, honest. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, sitting beside him. "I'm thinking it was worth it." "What?" "All those years of pain, unanswered questions, longing. It was worth it because they brought us to this moment." "You don't feel angry at her anymore?" Michael looked at his mother, who was laughing with the grandkids. "No. I feel sorry for her for the years she lost, but I'm not angry. She did what she thought was best with the information she had at the time. And now? Now we'll cherish every day we have together." As if sensing they were talking about her, Jennifer looked in their direction and smiled. It was a genuine smile, free of the constant sadness she had carried for so many years. "Thank you," she said silently, barely moving her lips. "You're welcome," Michael replied in the same way. 3 months later, on Ethan and Emma's joint birthday, born 2 years apart on the same day, Jennifer helped organize the first family birthday party in nearly 20 years. The house was full of the kids' friends, neighbors, and Michael and Sarah's co-workers. Jennifer was in the kitchen running the show as if she had never left the family. "Grandma," Emma came running in. "Can you help me light the candles?" "Of course, sweetheart." As they lit the cake's candles, Emma looked up at Jennifer with her big, curious eyes. "Grandma, are you happy now?" Jennifer stopped what she was doing and looked at her granddaughter. "Happier than I've ever been in my whole life, darling." "Me too. I like having a big family." "I like it too." "Grandma?" "Yes?" "Do you promise you'll never leave again?" Jennifer knelt to Emma's height and looked straight into her eyes. "I promise, Emma. I'll never leave again. Now I know a mother and grandmother's place is with her family, no matter what happens." Emma smiled and hugged her grandmother. "Yay! Now can we sing Happy Birthday?" "Let's." When the whole family gathered around the cake, singing for Ethan and Emma, Jennifer looked around and saw everything she had lost and regained. Her son had grown into an honest, successful man. Her daughter had overcome the traumas of her childhood. Her grandchildren were happy, loving kids. Her daughter-in-law had welcomed her like the mother she'd never had. "Make a wish, Grandma," Ethan shouted. "Me? You're part of the family too." Jennifer closed her eyes and made her silent wish that she could cherish every second she had left with this family she had almost lost forever. When she opened her eyes, she met Michael's gaze. He gave her an almost imperceptible nod, as if he could read her thoughts, and she knew her wish had already come true. A few months later, Jennifer was working at the community project when she received an unexpected visitor. A well-dressed, middle-aged man appeared in the small office. Jennifer Smith. A chill ran down her spine. No one had looked for her by that name in years. "Who's asking?" "My name is William Cooper. I worked with your ex-husband." Jennifer felt her blood run cold. This was exactly what she had always feared, that the past would come to collect the price of her silence. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. And I think you have some information that might interest us." Jennifer glanced around the office. Other people were working there, volunteers for the project. She couldn't make a scene. "I have nothing to say to you." "Oh, you do," William said, stepping closer. "You have 19 years' worth of information to share." "I don't know anything." "Don't lie to me, Jennifer. I know you overheard conversations, saw documents. Robert trusted you too much." Jennifer tried to stay calm, but her hands began to tremble. "Robert died 5 years ago. Anything he did died with him." "That's not how this works. Some important people want to make sure you won't use that information against them. I haven't said a word in 19 years. Why would I now? Because now you have a reason to talk. You have a family again." The threat was clear. They knew about Michael, about the kids. "What do you want?" "We want your guarantee that you'll stay silent. And we want some specific information about documents Robert may have hidden." "I don't know anything about any documents." "I think you do. And I think you'll remember if your family is threatened." Jennifer felt a wave of panic. It was exactly what she had always feared, that her decision to reconnect with her family would put them in danger. "Leave my family out of this." "That depends on you." William left a card on the table. "Think about what we discussed, and call me when you decide to cooperate." After he left, Jennifer sat in silence for several minutes, trembling. All her worst nightmares were coming true. She picked up the phone to call Michael, but stopped. How could she tell him she had put the family in danger? How could she break the promise she had made to Emma to never leave again? That night, Jennifer came home later than usual. Michael was waiting for her in the kitchen. "Mom, are you okay? You look upset." "Just tired, son." "Are you sure? You seem different." Jennifer forced a smile. "It must be work. I've been pushing myself too hard." "Then get some rest. You don't have to prove anything to anyone." "I know." But Michael knew his mother better now. There was something in her eyes that worried him. "Mom, if something's wrong, you'll tell me, right?" Jennifer looked at her son, her boy who was now a strong, successful man. How could she tell him that her worst choices from the past were coming back to haunt them? "Of course, son. No more secrets, remember?" No more secrets. But Jennifer was already lying again. And this time she didn't know if she'd have the courage to tell the truth before it was too late. That night she stayed awake until dawn, Staring at the card William had left, she had to make a decision. Protect her family by telling the truth and risk losing them again, or try to handle it alone and possibly put everyone in even greater danger. By sunrise, Jennifer had made her choice. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on the card. "William, it's Jennifer. Can we meet today?" "Great. I knew you'd be sensible. But I have one condition." "What?" "I want guarantees that my family won't be bothered." "That depends on how useful you are to us." Jennifer closed her eyes, feeling like she was about to repeat the same mistake from the past, making decisions alone in the name of protecting her family. But this time she didn't have the heart to disappear again. This time she would fight. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this emotional, twist-filled story. Did you feel Michael's pain at reuniting with his mother after so long? And what do you think about the tough choices Jennifer had to make? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. It helps us create even better stories. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other gripping stories like this one.